All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistolka, and I am excited today because we have none other than Dave Crysler from the Crysler Club, and that is Crysler spelled without an H. I always want to make sure that people know that. And we're going to be talking about using AI and experience to operate or to optimize operations. Dave, thanks for being here today, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be on the show with you, Damon. And we said before we went live, we could probably geek out over stuff like this for the next 10 hours.
Yep.
So maybe we should have like a operations marathon one day or something. Like
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, like get Kurt involved. Let's see if we could have like our own little manufacturing telethon.
Yeah, the manufacturing telethon. Oh, I'm gonna write that down because that would be fun. Yep. That would be fun, dude.
Yeah, right.
Something we're gonna have to do. Got me going on that one, Dave. So, Dave, let's familiarize people with who you are and how you're helping people by talking about your background, and then jump into how you're helping people today.
Yeah. So, background, spent many years in a corporate career working for a large publicly traded company. And, as I say, I was a transition guy. So I think we share that part of history. And while at the time I would never tell you how great it was, I can say that looking back, it's really, it's what allows me to do what I do today. And it's kind of ironic because when I think about all of those stories and all of those, things that I was put in place for and to deal with, it's ironic to me because it's the stuff that I have loved and have always loved it. So even though, you get tossed into difficult situations and you have to figure it out and you kind of navigate forward, and those practice runs help you, right, to now see things more clearly, more quickly, right? Yeah. It's lots of bruises coming up through there. But yeah, and as far as what I do today, that's a bit of the background, and, grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So I've always had this spirit around me in terms of doing my own thing. And today the business is really around working with leaders to help them optimize their operation. And, what that really means is looking for opportunities to increase efficiency, looking for opportunities to drive additional profitability, and kind of, leveraging our existing resources, right? Everybody wants to talk about, hey, let's talk about how we can implement AI and machine learning and IIoT, and let's talk about this new tech stack, and let's talk about, whatever else it is. And the reality of it is, for many companies, we're not leveraging the resources we already have. We're not leveraging our existing tech stack. We're not diving in and really tapping into the people doing the thing. And, all of that through process improvement initiatives, through, kind of all of the things that we talk about and do, there is a tremendous amount of opportunity to tap into, which means increased profitability, which means, additional resources and capital to reinvest. The list goes on and on. So,
yeah, and exactly like you said, that I wrote it down here because we get the whatever it is, the shiny object syndrome, in manufacturing. It's really easy to think that this new ERP system or this new piece of equipment or this new training is what we got to do across the board with everybody, because we're not. And really, with some good optimization work, you can get a lot farther and utilize what you've got a lot more fully, and go 3/4 of the way maybe than you would get with other large capital expenditures.
Yeah, I mean, it's you want to talk about how can you reinvest in your business, right? And that could be for additional growth, that could be for capital,
Yeah.
that could be for human capital, right? Like,
Yeah.
but what better way to do it than with the stuff you've already got? You know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
there's so many conversations around, we can't retain and find and attract amazing people. Well, some of that I would argue is going to be process related, right?
Yes.
Systemization, like, how are you engaging people in and around the team to be able to drive not just initiatives and improvements, but to do their job, right? Like,
Hmm.
how are you providing the tools and the necessary bounds and the goals to be able to do that on a consistent basis, right? That's the other part, is the consistency with which we're
Yeah.
able to deliver. So those are conversations, it's interesting to me, and you have to see the same thing, but it's interesting to me. Everybody knows that it needs to be done, but nobody likes to really talk about it. We
Yes.
talk about the symptoms that are out there. We talk about, being surrounded by fire all day, but we don't generally like to kind of talk about it. Not, I think it's probably because it's not the sexiest part of business, but it is the most fundamental, and it's where you make the biggest gains, in my experience.
Yeah. Well, it really, when you start to talk about, if you're a profitable company and you can start to save money in your current sales, your current processes, you just made more profit because you're already profitable, and every dollar of cost that you eliminate is one more dollar of profit. And a dollar of profit that comes through revenue is much harder to get, because I might have, say, if I've got a 40% gross margin, I've actually got to get whatever that is, two and a quarter, $2.2 of revenue to make a dollar in profit. Well, not necessarily. Well, no, my math's not good right now at this late in the afternoon.
I know where
And
you're going with
this,
it.
yeah, you know where I'm going. This is water. It's not booze yet, but you know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
dollars in profit, when that opportunity is there, you can increase your profits quickly with those kind of improvements. And the other thing that is really fundamental to lower middle market business owners that are in the 50 sub $50 million revenue range, that are even close to considering exiting or selling their company, is that when you sell that company, you have to pay off your equipment debt. And if you're an equipment junkie, which I used to be, I loved buying new stuff, man. There's
Yeah.
nothing cooler than spending $1
Right.
million and watching that thing come in big pieces and
Oh,
putting it
yeah.
in. And oh yeah, good stuff. But then when you go get it, you're at it where we call the red zone. In the last couple of years of owning your business, and you're getting ready to you're going to be selling eventually, that equipment, that investment has to make money back much, much faster, or you're just paying that money back.
Yeah.
Right. You're just paying that off before the new owners take it over.
Yeah.
And it's a big decision. And there's so many reasons to go back through your entire process. And I really enjoy, and I'm going to get your input on this too, in what you're seeing. But how many people really take the time to go end to end, like from customer contact to buy something to receiving payment, and really look at the whole thing?
Yeah. I mean, not many, right? That's the short answer.
Yeah.
It's incredible to me how few people consider that process flow, right? The value stream
Hmm.
map. You call it whatever you want, right? Like,
Yeah.
it always gets to me when people are, want to be ultra specific about. It's like, guys, come on, like, people aren't even looking at this stuff, so who cares what we call it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, to your point, there are so many opportunities when you start to take a look at those things. And the other part, the thing I like to talk about is, the thought process around the cycle of improvement, and where that really comes into play is, we're talking about taking a look at your business through that strategic lens, right? That should be, at the very least, an annual event, right? But
Yeah.
depending on the specific aspect of that, we should be talking about that on the quarter, on the half, and looking for these key opportunities to, drive some influence, drive some
Yeah.
optimization. Yeah, it's really incredible. I mean, we were talking about capital purchases, right? Equipment purchases. Well, when I when I had my corporate role, right? I'll use that as the example. We had a very
Yeah.
rigorous, as you would imagine, a very rigorous, CapEx process. And so in that, right, we had to take a look at kind of what's the strategic plan? Like what's the S&OP plan, right? Like what are we going to do with what we've got today? What do we think is going to be coming in the front door? How are we going to execute that today? How is this a capital equipment purchase going to fit into that mix? But it was from the forecasting perspective, right? Like we were already updating hourly rates to understand what's the impact, what's the burden, additional burden going to
Mm-hmm.
be for this new piece of equipment purchase? Can we pay for it, and not just pay for it, but really turn up the juice with this thing?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so many times the answer was no, right? And not no from the corporate perspective of like, no, it makes no, it was no at the plant level, saying, when I start to peel back all of these onion layers and I start to look at, what the impact is going to be by spending $1 million+ on this, fill in the blank, it's like, man, it's not there. Like I would have to go out and sell 30% new revenue in a category we don't even touch today to be able to do
Yeah.
this and to make it make sense. And, again, so back to what you said, like there's so much opportunity, whether we're talking about process, improvement, kind of optimization, or whether we're talking about strategic business planning and how that can ultimately impact these types of things at the plant level. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's, for me, it's kind of fundamental and foundational. And so I try to, shout it from the rooftops as many as many days that LinkedIn will let me.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're obviously seeing a little bit about AI in the news today. This little thing that they call Chat GPT and Bard and Bing Chat and are they're changing things a little bit.
A little bit.
A
Yeah.
little bit.
I've heard of those. I've
They
heard of
heard of
those.
them. Yeah. Yeah. So it really, when we're talking about optimizing operations, the title is, I love what you say on your, and I got to read your LinkedIn profile is, and this, I'm gonna pull it up here while we got it, because I was looking at it earlier and I closed the window, but you know um sorry, I'm slow today.
It's all right. It's all right. It's okay. We're all good.
Yeah, it was a good thing. So here we go. Got to read it. Outsmarting AI in manufacturing and beyond using actual intelligence and practical expertise. So you've obviously got some ideas about AI. And so what are some of the things you think people are doing right now or expecting AI to do that it really is not going to help them with right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think when people think about AI, and an interesting, fact about AI, right? Like it's been such a hot topic lately, but the reality of it is it's been around for decades, right? Decades. This stuff has been around for decades. And, so yeah, it's cool. The latest iteration is amazing, right? It's conversational. It has a lot of knowledge base. There's many, many things that you can do with it. But I am a firm believer that, AI in kind of any generative AI, and I know there's I'm guarantee there's going to be somebody that's going to jump into this, with what I say, right? But it's like, look at, people buy from people at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and technology cannot replicate the human connection. We
Hmm.
are pack animals at the lowest level of the
Yeah.
evolutionary chart,
Yeah.
and so when I think about it, I love AI. I'm a chat GPT, power user, and, I've got the paid subscription. I use it
Yeah.
all of the time. But the disconnect that I see for a lot of people, and it doesn't matter, what the kind of genre is, right, or who it is. But people think that it's going to replace, practical experience. And, as smart as ChatGPT is, it will never be able to replace the practical experiences and taking those experiences and applying them given new scenarios, right? And what I'm
Yeah.
really talking about is how do you apply that given a new, set of variables, people variables, equipment variable, like all of these things. It does not have the ability to reason in the same manner that we do. And I'm not saying that our reasoning is correct, but
Yeah.
what I am saying is that humans have this innate ability to take their experiences and to look at other factors and to bring all of that together in a kind of a practical sense, right? And I don't think that I will see that in AI in my lifetime. Maybe I'll be wrong.
Hmm.
It'll certainly be interesting to stay tuned to
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
right? But that's where I come from. It's a great tool. There's a lot of things that you can do with it in terms of, programming or
Yeah.
consolidating
Oh,
data, pulling out analytics and taking a look at those types of things. But if you were to jump into Chat GPT and say, I need some ideas on how I can optimize my order to cash flow processes and implement an inventory management system, it would give you the highest level of garbage that you've
yeah.
ever gotten, right?
Yeah.
It would tell you, well, what you should consider is a technology that would allow you to, and it's look, that's great, right? And yes, at the highest level, that is correct. That's exactly what you should be doing, right? But
Hmm.
it's kind of glossed over all of the important aspects of it. It's glossed over. So exactly how should I handle this team member who does data entry, who thinks this new process is crap and is not going to work, and we should be doing it this other way. ChatGPT does not know how to handle that. Okay. It may give you some high level leadership lessons, but it's not going to be able to dive into the details and
Yes.
say, I would do this first. I would do that next. I would do that, third. So that for me is it's obviously a big play on words because it's such a hot topic for me. And,
Yeah.
I'm passionate about the stuff that I do and I've done it for so long that's the real value in it, right? Like
Yeah.
when you have all of those lumps from being a
Hmm.
leader, in the real world and not in a textbook,
Yeah.
there's things that you've experienced and that you can apply today that are fundamental that a tool like AI cannot replicate.
Yeah. Yeah. They can't replicate the human experience and then apply it into a new situation like you said. I think that's
Yeah.
a real important point. I do see that there's some interesting applications though. And we've got John John Baglino saying hello. He's listening. But
I'm making
I'm
sure I don't get myself into trouble, John.
yeah. Yeah. There are some interesting applications, but again, when we talk about AI, I think this is Chat GPT and what we see as AI today in the press. As you said a while ago now, you said this, it's been around a long time. We've been programming things, go back even just a few years with some of these chat bots that are on these bigger company
Yeah,
websites that can walk you through a lot of stuff. That's a form of AI, right? It's
yeah,
just not as advanced into the conversational pieces. And I think some of the interesting stuff that I'm hearing now that may really take this to another level is to be able to do something. I was talking to a gentleman last week or 2 weeks ago that was talking about taking, for a very large corporation, all of their HR rules, regulations, everything that they have across the globe, and putting that data set into an AI based thing so that now Damon can ask an HR question of this system, and it will answer it, and it will answer it correctly. And right now they had people that were trying to look these obscure things up in this huge corporation, but this can bring it right to the forefront, give it to you, and really, and he said that was around that specific data set, though. It can't go outside that. It can't make
Yeah.
up its own. It can't do anything. It's like using that. And you think about the advancement that is, to be able to reason and go, okay, this is where Damon's at. This is his position. This is what's applicable, because that kind of programming is very hard for us to do now. But those things are really interesting, I think. The
Yeah,
applications there.
totally agree. And, not to get too into the weeds with AI, but, ChatGPT just released a pretty interesting feature along those lines where it will allow you to kind of give some background information as a behind the scenes input. I forget exactly what they call it. But if you go to if you go to your settings, it is in there.
Yeah, I saw that.
And yeah. And so that has been implemented for a few weeks now. But the other thing, there are some other kind of standalone that I've seen. There's a guy I'm connected to. This is kind of his world. And he was showing me a tool that he had come across, which will basically allow you to, in a similar context, kind of train a AI bot, but based on all of your input. So, kind of
Yeah.
it'd be like, me sitting there and training them on, the stuff that I do on any given day, to work with a client. So yeah, super interesting stuff. Like I said, it is certainly something to keep an eye on. It is certainly a tool to be used. But to me, that kind of goes to the bigger things I talk about too, right? Like, how often have you heard the word system and technology be the same thing? And it's, I just want to shout, it's no, those two, those are different. Those are different.
Yes, they are. Yes, they
So
are.
yeah.
Good. Well, I think there are some exciting times for us in manufacturing and
Oh yeah.
operations around it, to be able to see where our systems, whether they're AI driven or regular systems or just manual systems for that matter, and can really help us. And then where our experience is really going to lead us, because manufacturing is changing. I mean, it's changing from the people that are doing it to the types of products we're making to the supply chains we're dealing with, and
Yeah.
where things are manufactured. So some exciting stuff going on. And when you talk about, you say something on your profile, I like it every time I see it. It's like running in heavy boots. I believe when you're talking about when your systems aren't working right or your processes aren't working right. Um, that's a good analogy. So let's jump off on that a little bit. You get to help these people do these things. What are some of the typical process things that you see holding these manufacturing businesses up?
Yeah, I mean, it generally kind of falls into a couple of buckets. An easy spot to start is, product quality, right? There's always opportunities in and around that, whether that starts from, kind of customer defects, or whether that's internal stuff. That's always a good spot to start asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, then what I'm really doing is kind of diving into the key business systems, and that's universal, right? That applies in
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing and well beyond that. So we're talking about enterprise management, kind of what's that, back to that strategy piece, and that could certainly include technology. If we're talking sub 20 million, probably not really high level. Probably that 20 to about 100 million is going to, most likely have some sort of ERP in place. And then beyond that, it just kind of continues to be more mature. But we're talking about enterprise management. We're talking about financial management. We're talking about, IT infrastructure, admin, customer development, and operations, right? Like, how do we do the thing that we're actually doing? So talking about all of those through the lens of, the planning, people, process, technology, and understanding how those systems are interfacing with each other, as we start to talk about specific, process flows, as we're talking about order to cash, let's say, as we're talking about inventory management, as we're talking about quality management, as we're talking about, how do we deliver, estimates? How do
Mm-hmm.
we, treat our engineering department? How do we, it's endless, it's
Yes.
literally endless and limitless in terms of what we can look for to optimize and to take a look at, what are we doing today? How can we do this more efficiently? And again, all looking for those opportunities to drive, additional profitability back to the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're in businesses, you're talking about process optimization. Do you think that when we look at opportunities generally in opportunities, do you think that we've optimized the manufacturing floor to a point that we have more opportunities on business systems and the ancillary things around the manufacturing now? Or do you think there's still the bigger benefit is still out on the manufacturing floor?
I think it's both. Obviously, it depends on kind of, maturity of the business in terms of
Mm-hmm.
how they look at, process improvement and, kind of generalized like operational excellence, right? Which just fancy words for continuous improvement.
Yeah.
So I would say to answer that effectively, it depends on the maturity of the business. I have been into out of my entire career, right? So we're talking a long time now, a couple close to few decades of businesses that I've been into. And I would say that I could count on one hand the number of those businesses that were fully optimized, both on the
Yeah.
manufacturing floor and across the organization. That should speak volumes to the question that you just asked, right?
We
Like,
just got a lot of stuff. We just need to figure out where the biggest opportunity is.
yeah, I mean, it's, again, it's kind of never ending, right? Because all of the factors are always changing.
Yeah.
All right. 10
Good
years
point.
ago, right, was a different set of,
Yeah.
kind of employee dynamics, right? That was 5 years ago, right? Pre-pandemic versus
Yeah.
post-pandemic, two sets of kind of things we were dealing with from a culture piece, from a hybrid work piece, and that impacts manufacturers just like it does other types of businesses, right?
Yeah.
So the dynamics are always changing, the variables are always changing. What doesn't change is the fundamentals, the cycle of continuous improvement, the business systems that we need to be successful. Those two things do not change. They never, I hate to say they never will, right? But they never have in all of these
Yeah.
years. Those are the things that you need. If you look at a 50, 100, $1 billion business, you will find all of those things. And then you will find levels of maturity from that optimization piece, right? To get to $100 million in revenue, you got to kind of know what you're doing. Now, yeah, some of it you could kind of fake till you make because let's face it, a lot of revenue fixes a lot of inefficiency in the back end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
but, like I'll give you this example. So I was in a conversation earlier this week and somebody kind of glossed over and said, well, manufacturing, I mean, that's like, pretty generalized single digit, net profitability. I said, if you don't know what you're doing, it is. I
Yeah.
said, but
Yeah.
I was routinely in operations that we were delivering double digit and
Mm-hmm.
high double digit net
Mm-hmm.
profitability
Mm-hmm.
numbers
Yeah.
in declining product segments, in relatively small businesses, right? Like my whole point is it's possible if that's what you're, seeking out, right? And then that just creates cash to go out and do the rest of the cool stuff,
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, let's do this.
How, yeah. Oh, I won't go down that road because I was going to go down a different road because it's so good. It's so good. Just listen to you talk. Um, because there are these preconceived notions we have. And how many times when you're working with people on process optimization is the biggest challenge just preconceived notion?
I'd say it's the biggest, right? Like it's the I think it's this, but it's not really this, it's that.
Yeah.
Understanding kind of the work that really gets done, because it's different than I can buy this piece of equipment and it's going to do this thing. I know how much it costs. I know, that when they leave me, it's going to be able to do this amount of output. All of that's very, kind of black and white, and there's
Mm-hmm.
some gray in and around that, that, but it's a little bit more clearly defined than the work and the things that I talk about and ultimately do for companies, because it's
Mm-hmm.
a bit intangible, so it is more challenging to understand what is the real value of this. And until you've seen it through your own eyes, and you've seen a single digit 4% net profitability company go to a 24% net profitability company without changing revenue, sometimes decreasing revenue, and with the same number of employees, with the same equipment mix, with no change in sales and marketing, with, until you see that, you're kind of like, yeah, right. Okay. Like you just don't believe it because
Yeah.
it doesn't seem possible,
Mm-hmm.
and I would argue that it's more fun in general to talk about we grew revenue by, 15%. We did this by, but, the reality of it is when you go to sell your business, when you go to take out a loan on your business, if you want to buy another piece of equipment, if you want to bring in top level talent, like the best way to do it is by freeing up cash that you already have inside of the four walls of your business. So,
Yeah.
and I've not found any other way to do that beside optimizing your processes.
Mm-hmm. And when you can do it, like you said, I'm looking here at just kind of roughing some things out. I mean, when you basically going from 4 to 24%, that's 5x. And my math might be off, but it's 5x. You think 5x on that, you just increase the value of your company 5 times by doing that, whatever the multiple
Yeah.
was. And it's to do that from a revenue standpoint is pretty crazy. I mean, because you simply will run out of capacity or run out of space, you'll run out of people, you'll run out of cash
Yeah.
to generate many sales. So most
I mean,
people when they go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, not to cut you off, but I mean, you could say it in a completely different way for people too, right? How many times have you been into a business and you start to talk about these types of things and somebody says something along the lines of, well, I need to bring on this new piece of equipment because, we're out of capacity. It's like, oh, you guys are running around the clock? No, we run one shift. So wait a second. You just told me you're out of capacity. I'm confused now. So you can't be out of capacity if you only run 8 out of the 24 hours that there are in a day, right?
Yeah,
And there's so many different ways to structure, shifts and shift change and, avoid working weekends, and you could do ABCD, you could do, right?
yeah.
But the whole point is, like, even something that simple in terms of how you're thinking about your business, right? Like, though, that's a huge cash decision that you've just
Hmm.
made or committed to.
Yeah,
And so it's, again, back to that strategy piece. Like, how do I know those things? Well, because I had to do all the math and work behind the scenes to figure out, like, does this make sense? Does that not make sense? Do we just need to expand and work some overtime to cover this thing that we just sold? Or do
yeah,
we really need to go and add, a whole new shift? Right? Is this something
yeah.
temporary? Is it long term? Is it, like, it's just never ending, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. You make such a great point there too. I want to stop just for a second. We got
Yeah.
Deo in here today. He's talking about, yes, AI can help run businesses a lot easier when it's utilized properly. There's going to be some of these things we're going to see. Like, I really think about these confined data sets to help
Oh,
people,
yeah.
customer service and just there's so much in that. It's going to be fun. So Bob is here.
Oh,
Bob,
cool. Bob. All right. I think he's on
dude.
vacation this week too.
Yeah,
So,
saw him with his
man.
legs up the front of the boat. It was
All
awesome.
right.
He was out getting that going on. And do you know anybody that cooks as good as he does?
I don't know. I love to cook, and if I could be half as good of a cook as Bob was,
I'm like,
I'd be in good
dude,
shape. Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad I don't live like 2 miles from him because I'd be
Right.
400 pounds. I'd be 400 Damon. It would be ugly, but it's so good, so good. And he pairs it with
Uh,
the right stuff.
yeah.
John's laughing. He's laughing. I think he was laughing at the guy that says, "Hey, we need another piece of equipment." And he said they say it with a straight face because they do, right?
Yeah.
I was in. Hey, it happened to me in the molding industry. We were running in that industry, in that business. They thought that Monday through Friday, 24 hours was good. And when I said, well, we have this whole weekend here, and they're like, well, we don't run weekends. I said, why don't we run weekends? And I said,
Yeah.
and then I said, whoa, why don't we try 12-hour shifts and do, like you said, the ABCD, and let's let people work 3 days a week and get 4 days off. Let's see how that works for a while. And pretty soon you're running something that's running 24/7. And I just added that 20 some percent capacity because we were out
Right.
of capacity because
Yeah.
there's only so fast you can get the things open and closing and
Yep.
making parts for people.
Yep.
And the the utilization and that increase in utilization in these industries where you are really tight margin already, like a CNC machining
Yeah.
company, same thing. You get that extra output through those same pieces of equipment, that same rent, that same maintenance cost per hour of running that you're going to have. You just can't. I don't know why people don't do it.
Well, I
It's a
think,
pain.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's a boatload of work. Like,
Yeah.
don't let anybody fool you.
Yeah.
It is
It's
a
not easy.
boatload of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I used to have hair when I started this,
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
mean, so yeah, it's a boatload of work. But it's hard to say, right? Because until you see those types of things in like play out in real life, it is hard to kind of wrap your mind around. But it is so cool when it comes together like
Hmm.
that. And and like you said, okay, so now you go to the next step, right? So that's one step. We're going 24/7, right? Like, boom, we've got this additional capacity locked in. Now we're at capacity again. Well, what can we do from a throughput scenario, right? Like, what can we do with like the SMED, right? Like single minute exchange of die. What can we do with, more efficient changeovers? What can we do with batch production? What can we do with inventory control? What can we do with, order entry optimization? Like, how can we batch incoming work with, work in process, right? Like, you can just go down this like crazy laundry list and squeeze like another probably 10%, at least of, real utilization and throughput in that same scenario. Like, read the book The Goal, like one of the
Yeah.
coolest stories of that exact situation, right?
Hmm.
Like, so yeah, man, it's cool when you see it work itself out in real life. It is a tremendous accomplishment, to be celebrated, but it's possible. It's possible. I've seen it many times over in my career, and it's a lot of fun, and it doesn't change any time that I've ever seen big plane like that land.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It really is. So, Dave, what are you excited about now? What's exciting you in process optimization today?
I think in general, I think people with the, let's call it, the resurgence of attracting and retaining amazing people. I think that the stuff that I do and that we talk about and that I love so much, I think it's going to continue to get more and more interest and attention, because the reality of it is, whatever market we're talking about, there is a cap to that. There is a real expense to go after additional market share.
Hmm.
And, when you start to look at these, either folks that are transitioning out of their businesses, that need to be able to, increase cash and increase value for their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Or on the opposite side, you could look at a more mature organization that's bringing in some maybe new leadership folks that are kind of, living the life I lived for so many years in the middle, between C-suite and, what's actually happening out on the floor, right? Even in that scenario, they are looking for those opportunities because they're the ones that are kind of now over leveraged, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
just shared an article the other day from Harvard Business Review about the crisis of middle management, right? Well, that's been going on for a long time. It's not going to to just mysteriously go away. So for me, what's exciting is kind of, I think people are coming around to this realization that we can do more with what we have. And it's not necessarily about going out and, either looking for the shiny object with AI or something like that. Now, maybe there's, an opportunity to leverage a tool like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really kind of looking internally and bringing people together. And, so that's what I'm most excited about. Just the opportunity to kind of serve more people, get people as excited as I get about this stuff. Cause, it's just, I've loved it my whole life. I could talk about it for hours and
Yeah.
it never gets old because while there's so many things that are similar, uh, every situation is unique because every situation has a different set of personalities, that are at
Yes.
play, right? And that could be up and down or across the organization, right? So that's different. And the other dynamics that go into, a project or, a some sort of initiative that would kind of fall in this realm, there's going to be some dynamics that are different as well. That could be on the
Yeah.
tech stack side. That could be, process related. Could be just general org stuff. So yeah.
It's good stuff, man. Good stuff. And we got some more comments here. I want to gonna
Oh
hit
boy.
those before we got Bob. This is something we'll spend
Yeah.
just a moment on, but the people first approach. And we'll get back to that. But the king of process is speaking John's language. There we go. Got that. And then Bob's hitting optimization again. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff.
We need like
And
one of those confetti buttons or something, every time
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
shouts optimization.
Oh man, I gotta drop my pen. But we got a confetti button. I gotta see how
There
we
you
can do
go.
that.
So
That
we'll
will be
we'll get that on the telethon. We'll get
whoosh.
that on the telethon, Damon.
That'd be funny. That'd be funny as heck. So the thing that I really am enjoying, and it might just be me and the clients I'm working with now, is it seems like the whole people challenge that we're going through has really caused companies to go back and look at, are we neglecting our people or are we really engaging our people? And I think that if there's anything that comes out of it, I hope is we can get more engagement, because when you talk about taking a company from 4% to 24% profit, that doesn't happen without Damon, who's dumping garbage cans every day, helping us with what Damon knows, because Damon's
Yeah.
smart in Damon's own way, and Damon can help us make more money. And if you don't get those people engaged, you're not going to get those results. But I think, hope, pray that that's really starting to help us engage everyone to build better businesses.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, right? When I was early on in my leadership career and journey, I, as I told you, I grew up in a family-run business, and that family-run business was started in the '70s, and that was a different type of management style, and that was the style that I brought with me because that's
Mm-hmm.
how I learned.
Yeah.
And I was on top of that, I was a young kid that thought he knew a bunch of stuff, and so like those two things combined was
Yeah.
definitely not great for culture, believe me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, so we talked about bumps and bruises and bad decisions. And, I did all of that. And for me, as the real unlock for me and where I saw it firsthand was the fact that, you know, as I continued to kind of grow and people constantly still saw something inside of me and gave me these opportunities to expand my responsibility in bigger departments than, facilities and so on and so forth. That for me was the unlock to say, like, man, now I'm in this facility that I don't know any of these people. I don't know any of the products. I don't know the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, how am I I know what I have to do, right? Like I have to increase revenue. I have to increase profitability. And I need to do that like yesterday, because this is a plant that was in transition. And if I
Mm-hmm.
don't, this plant's going to close. Like that was what was in Dave's mind about the reality of the situation. And so
Yeah.
it was a real quick lesson of like, hey, everybody, like, here's kind of, why I'm here, what I think we can do. Like, how can we do this?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was that hands-on, but I tell that story because I think it applies to everybody. I think it applies to a business owner who is not like that naturally. Okay. And I tell
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
story the same way, because here's the thing. If there is anything that people appreciate, it is transparency and honesty. And when I was a terrible leader, I would tell people that, like, hey, I'm sorry, I screwed this up. Like, I'm just not that good at this. Okay. But I want to be better. I want to change this. I want to, fill in the blank. Right. And I was like, what? Like, you shouldn't say stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I should, because that's the reality of the situation. Okay. We're all
Mm-hmm.
people. We're all trying to figure it out. And yeah, some of us have different titles. Right. But when you approach leadership from that standpoint and you're that candid about it and you own, the shit that you've pulled before,
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, yeah, people might still like kind of be, but that will go away. That will break
Mm-hmm.
down over time. As long as you continue to show up, as long as you continue to try, as long as you continue to ask for feedback. And for me, all of that comes back to process, right? It really does. It's fundamental, it's foundational. And if you don't have those processes in place, even to
Oh.
run a meeting, right? Like if you don't have a
Yeah.
process to run an effective
Yep.
meeting, what you should not be meeting with people. Okay. That could be
I
one-on-one.
love
That
that.
could be team department, that could be all hands meet, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's that level of granularity that you can apply the things that I talk like. Yeah, you don't need me to create a meeting agenda for you, right? But you could certainly use the things I talk about to think through what is an appropriate process for you to host a meeting for your group, your
Mm-hmm.
team, your organization, your department, right? So
The king of process dropping bombs again. That's what
you
it
get me
is
on my
right there.
soapbox, man. It's,
That's good.
you can't give me a platform like this to just talk about process. I can go, off the rails.
No, but I think it's good. It's an approach that we have to do it in, and especially now when we want to engage people, we want to show them so much, include them and make them feel part of something bigger than themselves. I mean, that's what we really all want to be. And
Yeah.
um, how you wove that together with process and how that can help us is fundamental and important, because for a long time we've neglected it. I mean, everything, like you say, process. And I was just working with a client the other day. Well, what's your onboarding process? How's it look from the candidate's perspective? Have
Yeah.
you gone through it? No. I said, let's go through it together. And we
Yeah.
walked it. I said, okay, when I look at this, and there's things, things that we found, and we changed the steps in it and changed those things. But you look like you're talking about process, process, process.
Yeah.
And then people don't think about your recruiting process. Do you just throw a job ad up on whatever platform and hope that the right person does it, or do you have a network of things that go out and find the right people yourself? There's
Yeah.
all this stuff that we can do when we think about it, and when we turn it into a process and we get even a little bit of documentation, that means that I've got a more repeatable process
Exactly.
that I can do again.
Exactly.
And
Consistency is key. it's key internal, it's key external, right? Like you're talking
Yep.
about employee onboarding, right? Like I'll give you a great example of that. How often have you heard from a business owner, and it certainly would apply in a leadership, generalized leadership role as well. But how often have you heard like, oh, Joe over here, he's, I don't think he's going to make it. He's not doing what we need him to do. It's like, okay, we'll just have job description. Oh yeah. Yeah. We got a job description, does he understand like what his roles and responsibilities? Yeah. 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 Have you ever told Joe what success looks like from your eyes? Have you given Joe the bounds and the goal to understand what success looks like from your perspective? Right? I'm not talking about job description. I'm talking
Yeah.
about what does success look like? What
Yep.
are my KPIs? What am I trying to do here?
Yep.
And generally the answer is, haven't really thought about that.
Yeah.
And that's okay though, right? Like that's okay. Now there's an opportunity to optimize your process.
Yes. Yes. Oh, awesome, man. Like you said, we could probably be here for hours and
I
hours
know.
and hours. And I just want to ask you one last question, and we can move on from there. So, do you think the Lions are going to have a football team this year?
Man, everybody's all geeked up because it's, preseason this weekend. And, last year we're coming off the big, a big great end of the year. It's the
Yeah.
same story every year. Call me when they get to the playoffs. I'll let you know if I'm tuning in or not.
Yeah.
So I say
Yep.
they're always fun to go to no
Yes.
matter how they're doing. So
That's true. That's true. Well, unless you're a Packers fan, because if
well,
Matt Goosey's listening to this, we always have to give the Packers a bad time. So, thanks a lot for being here, Dave. I always enjoy it when you stop by and talk about process. If somebody wants to reach out to you and talk to you about, a process, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
yeah, best way, I hang out on LinkedIn quite a bit. So you can always find me there, shoot me a DM, or you can find me on our website, which is just the Crysler with no H.club.
All right. All right, man. Well, thanks for being here today. I want to thank Bob for stopping by. Bob, I hope you're still on vacation.
Yeah, man.
And
Jeez.
if you were, why the heck are you commenting here today? Unless you're just having fun doing it. I want John. Thanks, Deo. Thanks, guys, for being here. Thanks, everyone, for that was listening but wasn't commenting. We will be back again with another awesome guest. Dave, hang out just for a moment and we'll
Yeah.
catch up and be done. Thanks,
Awesome.
everyone.
Thanks, Damon.